Marina Holtz stared at the text message that would change her life, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the phone. The agency never called her for private jobs. Never. And now they wanted her to serve at Adrian Cole's mansion tonight. Everyone in the city knew that name. Everyone feared it. The message was clear. Refusal was not an option and the pay was more than she made in 2 months. She had 30 minutes to accept. Her finger hovered over the screen as baby Noah gurgled from his crib in the corner of their tiny apartment. The eviction notice on the door seemed to pulse in her peripheral vision, reminding her why she had no choice. She typed yes and immediately felt her stomach drop. 20 minutes later her phone rang again. The babysitter. Sick. Can't make it. So sorry. Marina's heart hammered against her ribs as she looked from the phone to Noah, then to the clock. She had 1 hour before the car arrived. No backup. No family. No friends available. The walls of the apartment seemed to close in as panic clawed at her throat. She couldn't bring a baby to a mafia boss's mansion. That was insane. That was how people disappeared. But the eviction notice stared back at her and Noah needed formula, and the heat had already been shut off twice this month. Marina made a decision that would either save her or destroy her. She wrapped Noah in a black sling, securing him against her chest beneath the oversized white button-down shirt the agency required. He was small for 6 months, quiet by nature, and if she fed him right before they left, maybe he would sleep through the entire evening. Maybe no one would even know. The black town car arrived exactly on time, its windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. Marina climbed in, her heart pounding so loud she was certain the driver could hear it. Noah stayed perfectly still against her chest, his warmth the only thing keeping her from falling apart completely. The drive took 20 minutes through parts of the city she'd only seen on television. The houses grew larger, the walls higher, until finally they stopped at iron gates that looked like they could withstand a tank. Guards appeared from nowhere, their faces hard, their jackets bulging with concealed weapons. One of them opened her door. "You're late," he said flatly. "The traffic," Marina started, but he was already walking away. She followed him up a driveway that seemed endless, past fountains and sculptures that probably cost more than every place she'd ever lived combined. The mansion loomed ahead, all sharp angles and dark windows, looking less like a home and more like a fortress. Her arms instinctively tightened around the sling as Noah shifted slightly. "Please stay asleep," she thought desperately. "Please." Inside, the head steward met her with a face carved from stone. His eyes swept over her with the kind of assessment that missed nothing, and for one terrifying moment, Marina thought he could see through her shirt to the baby hidden beneath. But he only frowned at her shoes. "You'll serve the main dining room," he said, his voice clipped and precise. "Mr. Cole is hosting critical guests tonight. You will be invisible. You will be silent. You will make no mistakes. Do you understand?" Marina nodded, not trusting her voice. "If you embarrass this household, you will not work in this city again." He paused, letting the threat sink in. "Or anywhere else." She was led through hallways of gleaming marble, past paintings that looked old enough to be in museums, beneath chandeliers that threw fractured light across everything like broken glass. Other staff members moved with practiced silence, their faces blank, their movements efficient. No one made eye contact. The dining room was massive, dominated by a table that could seat 20. Only 6 chairs were occupied tonight, all by men in expensive suits who radiated danger the way other people radiated cologne. They spoke in low voices, their conversations coded and careful. And at the head of the table sat Adrian Cole. Marina had seen his picture before, usually in newspaper articles about investigations that went nowhere and witnesses who disappeared. But photographs hadn't prepared her for the reality of him. He was younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to register everything without ever really looking at anything. His suit probably cost more than a car. His hands were steady on the table, no rings, no watch, nothing that could be grabbed in a fight. He didn't look up when she entered, but somehow she knew he was aware of her. Marina took her position near the serving station, her instructions simple. Keep the wine glasses full, clear plates when signaled, and disappear when not needed. The other servers moved like shadows and she tried to copy them, tried to become invisible. Noah stayed perfectly still against her chest. She could feel his small heartbeat, steady and trusting. He had no idea where they were or what hung in the balance. 40 minutes passed. then 50. Marina began to believe they might actually make it through the night. Then Noah stirred. She felt it immediately, the small movement against her ribs, the shift of his head. She pressed her hand gently against the sling, trying to soothe him back to sleep, but he moved again, more insistently this time. No, she thought desperately. Not now. Please, not now. She was standing near the table, wine bottle in hand, when Noah let out a soft, unmistakable cry. The sound cut through the room like a gunshot. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. The head steward's face went from stone to ash in seconds, his eyes finding Marina with the kind of horror usually reserved for natural disasters. And Adrian Cole slowly, deliberately looked up. Marina's blood turned to ice. The wine bottle trembled in her hand, and for a wild moment she considered running, just bolting for the door and never looking back. But Adrian's eyes locked onto hers and she found she couldn't move at all. "What?" Adrian said quietly, his voice carrying despite its softness. "Was that sound?" The head steward stepped forward, already forming excuses, but Adrian raised one hand and the man froze mid-step. "I asked her." Adrian's gaze never left Marina. Marina's throat closed. Noah whimpered again and she felt every eye in the room boring into her. The guests had stopped pretending not to stare. The guards near the door had subtly shifted position. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard and tried again. "The baby is mine, Mr. Cole. I'm so sorry. My babysitter canceled and I had nowhere else to. I'll leave right now. I'm so sorry." She started to back toward the door but Adrian spoke again. "Stop." She froze. Adrian pushed his chair back slowly, the sound of wood on marble impossibly loud. He stood and somehow he seemed taller than he had sitting down, more solid, more real. When he moved around the table toward her, every instinct screamed at Marina to run, to protect her child, to get out. But she couldn't move. Adrian stopped 3 feet away, his eyes dropping to where her hand pressed against the sling beneath her shirt. Noah cried again, louder this time, and Marina felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Bring him here," Adrian said quietly. The room seemed to tilt. Marina stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "Mr. Cole," the head steward started, but Adrian silenced him with a look. "Bring the baby here," Adrian repeated, his tone unchanged. Marina's hands shook as she unbuttoned her shirt enough to reveal the sling. She lifted Noah out carefully, holding him against her shoulder, his small face red from crying. He was so tiny in this enormous room, so vulnerable, and every maternal instinct Marina possessed screamed at her to shield him from these dangerous men. "He doesn't like strangers," she warned, her voice barely above a whisper. "He'll probably cry more if you..." But then Adrian reached out and everything changed. The moment Adrian's hands touched Noah, the baby stopped crying completely. Not gradually, not with the usual hiccuping aftershocks of infant tears, but instantly, as if someone had flipped a switch. Marina felt Noah's body relax, felt him turn toward Adrian instead of away. Then Noah grabbed Adrian's jacket with both tiny fists and refused to let go. Adrian froze. His hands were still extended, hovering in the air, as this 6-month-old baby pressed his face against his chest and clung to him with surprising strength. For several seconds nobody in the room even breathed. Marina watched in stunned silence as Adrian's expression shifted through emotions she couldn't name. Certainly. But also something else, something deeper and more painful, flickering across his face before he could lock it down. Slowly, carefully, Adrian adjusted his arms to support Noah's weight. The baby made a small, contented sound and burrowed closer, his chubby fingers still twisted in the expensive fabric. Noah's eyes had already drifted closed, his body completely relaxed in a way Marina had rarely seen except in deep sleep. "He's never done that before," Marina whispered, unable to stop herself. "With anyone." Adrian didn't respond. He was staring down at Noah with an expression that didn't match anything Marina knew about him, about his reputation, about the fear that followed his name through the city. His thumb moved slightly, the smallest gesture, barely brushing against Noah's back. One of the guests cleared his throat awkwardly. "Adrian, should we?" "The dinner is over," Adrian said, his voice carrying absolute authority despite remaining quiet. "We'll reschedule." The guests exchanged uncertain looks but didn't argue. They knew better. Within minutes they were being escorted out, their confused murmurs fading as they disappeared down the hallway. The head steward looked like he might faint, but he quickly began directing the staff to clear the room, leaving Marina and Adrian alone in the vast dining room. Adrian moved to one of the chairs and sat down carefully, as if worried any sudden movement might disturb Noah. He gestured for Marina to take the seat beside him. She sat because what else could she do? "What's his name?" Adrian asked. "Noah." "How old?" 6 months. Adrian nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the baby. Noah had released his jacket now but remained pressed against his chest, breathing steadily, completely at peace. The contrast between them was jarring. The feared Mafia boss and the innocent child, darkness and light occupying the same space. "Tell me about yourself," Adrian said. It wasn't a request. Marina swallowed. "There's not much to tell. I work 3 jobs. The father left before Noah was born. I just got evicted from my apartment yesterday. I brought Noah tonight because I was desperate and stupid and I'm sorry." "Stop apologizing." Adrian's voice held no anger, just something that might have been weariness. "How old are you?" 23. "Family?" "None. I grew up in foster care." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his hand now resting gently on Noah's back, moving in small circles that seemed almost unconscious. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, carrying a weight that made Marina's chest ache. "I had a son once," he said. "Years ago. He would have been about 4 now." Marina's breath caught. She hadn't expected this, hadn't expected him to share anything real. "What happened?" she asked, then immediately regretted it. "I'm sorry, you don't have to." "He died." Adrian's jaw tightened. "My world is violent. I thought I could protect him and his mother. I was wrong. After that, I couldn't be around children anymore. Couldn't even look at them without." He stopped, his hand stilling on Noah's back. "Noah's the first child I've held since then," he finished quietly. The silence that followed felt sacred somehow, heavy with grief and something Marina didn't have words for. She looked at this man who terrified an entire city and saw something she hadn't expected to find. Humanity, broken and bleeding but still there. Noah shifted slightly, making a small sound but didn't wake. "He won't let go," Adrian said, and there was wonder in his voice, genuine surprise. "He should be afraid. Children usually sense what I am." "Maybe he senses something else," Marina said softly. Adrian looked at her, then really looked at her, and Marina felt pinned by the intensity of his gaze. She saw calculation there, assessment, but also something warmer, something almost grateful. "You and Noah will stay here tonight," he said. "There's a guest wing. Secured private. You'll have everything you need." "Mr. Cole, I can't." "It's not a request." But his tone wasn't harsh. "You said you were evicted. Where would you go?" Marina didn't have an answer. "I'll have someone prepare the room," Adrian continued. "You'll be safe here. Both of you." He stood carefully, Noah still cradled against his chest, and Marina saw how naturally the position came to him, how his body remembered something his mind had tried to forget. He walked toward the door where the head steward appeared instantly, his face carefully neutral despite the shock that must have been coursing through him. "Prepare the East guest suite," Adrian ordered. "Full accommodations. The lady and her son will be staying indefinitely." "Yes, Mr. Cole." The steward's voice didn't waver, though his eyes widened slightly. Adrian turned back to Marina, then slowly, almost reluctantly, handed Noah back to her. The baby stirred at the transfer, his face scrunching, but settled quickly against his mother's familiar warmth. "Rest tonight," Adrian said quietly. "We'll discuss permanent arrangements when I return tomorrow evening." Marina nodded, still too stunned to fully process what was happening. A staff member appeared to escort her to the guest wing, and as she followed them through the mansion's maze of hallways, she glanced back once. Adrian stood in the doorway of the dining room, watching them go, his expression unreadable but his hand still curved slightly, as if remembering the weight of a child against his chest. The East guest suite was larger than Marina's entire apartment had been, with a bedroom, sitting room, and bathroom that looked like something from a luxury hotel. A crib had already been set up, brand new, with sheets so soft they felt like clouds. There were diapers, formula, clothes in Noah's size, everything she could possibly need appearing as if by magic. Marina fed Noah and put him down, then sat on the edge of the enormous bed, trying to understand what had just happened. She'd walked into a nightmare expecting to lose everything, and somehow she'd ended up here, protected by the most dangerous man in the city because her baby had grabbed his jacket and wouldn't let go. She didn't sleep much that night, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to come and tell her it was all a mistake or a trick. But no one came. The mansion remained quiet, and Noah slept peacefully in his new crib, safe for the first time in his short life. Morning came with soft sunlight filtering through expensive curtains. Marina woke to Noah's happy babbling and spent the morning settling into the strange new reality of the guest suite. Staff members brought breakfast, asked if she needed anything, treated her with a respect that felt surreal. Everything was perfect, comfortable, safe. Around mid-morning, a knock came at the door. The head steward stood there, his expression professionally neutral. "Mr. Cole wanted you to know he has an important business meeting this morning," the steward said. "He'll be leaving shortly and expects to return this afternoon. He asked that you and the child make yourselves comfortable. The grounds are available to you if you'd like some fresh air." Marina thanked him and closed the door, relieved to have the day to process everything. She fed Noah, played with him, tried not to think too hard about what came next or why a man like Adrian Cole would offer her shelter. By late morning, Noah was getting fussy, fighting his nap. Marina tried everything, rocking, singing, walking him around the suite, but nothing worked. He was overtired, she knew, but he kept squirming, kept pushing against her. Then around 11:30 everything changed. Through the tall windows of the suite, Marina saw movement in the courtyard below. Adrian, dressed in an immaculate dark suit, was walking toward a waiting car surrounded by his security team. He moved with purpose, clearly ready to leave for his meeting. And Noah saw him. The baby's fussing turned into crying, then into screaming. Not his normal cry, not his tired or hungry sound. This was desperate, frantic, the kind of crying that made Marina's heart race with instinct. Noah strained toward the window, reaching with both arms toward something she couldn't see, his small face red and wet with tears. "Show baby, what's wrong?" Marina pleaded, but Noah only cried harder. She moved to the window thinking maybe he wanted to see outside, but that made it worse. Noah was inconsolable now, his whole body rigid, his screams echoing through the suite. Staff members appeared at her door, concerned, asking if the baby needed a doctor. "I don't know what's wrong with him," Marina said, her voice breaking. "He just started." Noah's screams intensified. His small hands clawed at Marina's clothes, reaching desperately toward the door, toward the hallway, toward something. Marina made a decision. She grabbed him close and rushed out of the suite, following her instinct down the grand staircase. Staff members stepped aside, confused, as she ran through the hallways toward the main entrance. She burst through the front doors just as Adrian was about to get into his car. "Mr. Cole," she called out, breathless. Adrian turned, his hand on the car door, his expression shifting to concern when he saw Noah's tear-stained face and heard his desperate cries. The moment Noah saw Adrian, his crying changed pitch. He reached out with both arms, straining so hard toward Adrian that Marina could barely hold him. Adrian crossed the distance in seconds. "What's wrong?" "I don't know," Marina said desperately. "He just started crying when he saw you leaving and I can't calm him down and—" Adrian reached for Noah, and the baby practically lunged into his arms. The instant Adrian held him, Noah grabbed his jacket with both tiny fists and clung to him like he was drowning. His crying didn't stop immediately, but it changed, became pleading instead of frantic, desperate instead of panicked. Noah buried his face in Adrian's neck and held on with every ounce of strength in his small body. Adrian's security team exchanged uncomfortable glances. The driver stood by the open car door, clearly waiting. One of the guards cleared his throat. "Sir, we need to leave now if we're going to make the meeting on time." Adrian looked down at Noah, who was still clinging to him, still crying but quieter now, more like he was begging than screaming. The baby's fingers were twisted so tightly in Adrian's jacket that his tiny knuckles were white. "Sir," the guard prompted. "The others are already en route to the venue." Adrian tried to hand Noah back to Marina. The baby's crying immediately escalated to screams. His grip tightened on Adrian's jacket and he turned his face away from Marina, refusing to let go. "Noah, sweetie, you have to let go," Marina tried, but Noah shook his head violently and cried harder. Adrian attempted again to transfer Noah to Marina's arms. The baby's screams reached a pitch that made everyone within earshot wince. His whole body went rigid, fighting the transfer with surprising strength. The moment Adrian pulled him back against his chest, Noah's screaming softened. He pressed his face against Adrian's neck and held on like his life depended on it. "Sir, the meeting," another guard said, more urgently this time. "This is the peace negotiation you've been arranging for months. The business deal that could change everything. If you're not there." Adrian stood in the driveway, this powerful man who commanded fear and respect throughout the city, completely frozen by a 6-month-old baby who wouldn't let go. Noah whimpered against his neck, his small body trembling from the force of his crying. "Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry," Marina said, mortified. "I don't know why he's doing this. He's never." "Sir, we have to leave now," the head of security insisted. Adrian's jaw tightened. He looked at the car, at his waiting security team, at the watch on his wrist tracking the minutes until the most important meeting of his career. Then he looked down at Noah, who clutched him with such fierce, desperate need. Something in Adrian's expression shifted. "Cancel it," he said quietly. The security team froze. The head guard stared at him. "Sir." "Cancel the meeting." Adrian's voice was firm now, decided. "Tell them something came up. We'll reschedule." "Mr. Cole, with respect, you can't. This meeting took months to arrange. The other parties, the deal, your reputation." "I said cancel it." Adrian's tone left no room for argument. He adjusted his hold on Noah, cradling the baby more securely. "Tell the driver to put the car away. I'm staying here." The guards exchanged shocked glances but didn't argue further. They knew better. Within moments they were making calls, sending messages, while Adrian turned and walked back toward the mansion with Noah still clinging to him. Marina followed, her mind spinning with confusion and guilt. "Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry." "It's fine," Adrian said, but his voice was distant, distracted. He was looking at Noah with an expression Marina couldn't read. "Something about this feels wrong. If he's this upset." He didn't finish the thought. Inside, Adrian carried Noah to a sitting room and finally settled into a large chair. Noah's crying had reduced to hiccuping sobs now, but his grip on Adrian's jacket never loosened. He kept his face pressed against Adrian's chest, his small body still trembling. "I don't understand," Marina said, hovering nearby. "He's never done anything like this. Never." Adrian's hand moved in slow circles on Noah's back, the gesture becoming more natural with each passing moment. "When did he start crying?" "When he saw you leaving. Through the window. The moment he saw you walking to the car, he just lost it." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his brow furrowed in thought. Noah's breathing was evening out now, the crying finally stopping as exhaustion took over. But still the baby didn't let go. "Maybe he thought you were leaving for good," Marina offered weakly. "Maybe he got scared that." "Maybe," Adrian said, but he didn't sound convinced. An hour passed. Noah fell into an exhausted sleep against Adrian's chest, but even sleeping his tiny fist stayed twisted in the fabric of Adrian's jacket. Adrian didn't move, didn't try to put him down, just held him and stared at the wall with an expression that shifted between confusion and something that looked almost like unease. Marina sat nearby, guilt eating at her. She'd cost Adrian an important meeting, maybe damaged crucial business relationships, all because her baby had thrown an unexplainable fit. She tried to apologize again, but Adrian waved her off. "Stop," he said quietly. "Something about this doesn't feel right. I can't explain it, but..." He was interrupted by his head of security bursting into the room, his face pale, his phone clutched in his shaking hand. "Sir," the man said, his voice tight. "There's been an incident." Adrian's whole body went still. "What kind of incident?" The guard's eyes flicked to Noah, then to Marina, then back to Adrian. "The meeting venue. The building where your meeting was supposed to take place. There's been..." He stopped, swallowed hard. "There's been an explosion." The words seemed to suck all the air from the room. Marina felt the blood drain from her face as Adrian slowly, carefully stood up, still holding Noah. His expression had gone completely blank, locked down into the mask he wore when he needed to hide what he was feeling. "When?" Adrian's voice was deadly quiet. 12:15. Right when the meeting was scheduled to start. The guard was pulling up something on his phone with shaking hands. "Initial reports say the entire conference room was destroyed. Everyone who was there." He stopped, his throat working. "Sir, Everyone who was supposed to be at that meeting is dead. The silence that followed was suffocating. Marina couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process the impossible reality of what she was hearing. Adrian should have been there. Should have been in that room when the explosion happened. Should have been dead. "Show me," Adrian said. The guard handed over his phone. Adrian stared at the screen, his face carved from stone, while Noah slept peacefully against his chest, completely unaware that his desperate crying had saved a life. The news footage showed flames and smoke, emergency vehicles, people running. The building was destroyed, reduced to rubble and fire. The reporter's voice talked about casualties, about the suspected targeted attack, about how authorities were investigating who might have been the primary target. But Marina knew. They all knew. Adrian had been the target. This whole thing had been designed to eliminate him. And Noah had stopped him from going. "He knew," Marina whispered, the truth hitting her like a physical blow. "That's why he was crying. That's why he wouldn't let you leave. He knew." "That's impossible," the guard said automatically, but his voice lacked conviction. Adrian slowly handed the phone back, his eyes never leaving Noah's sleeping face. His hand was shaking where it supported the baby's back, the only outward sign of the shock coursing through him. "Noah started crying at 11:30, Adrian said quietly, his voice hollow. "Exactly when I was about to leave. He refused to let me go. If he hadn't, if I'd gotten in that car." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. The head of security was already on his phone, coordinating protection, calling in reinforcements, implementing emergency protocols. Other guards appeared, their faces grim, moving to secure the mansion. But Adrian didn't seem to see any of it. He just stood there, holding the baby who had saved his life, looking like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. "Get Marina and Noah to the secure wing," Adrian finally said. "Full protection. No one gets near them without my direct authorization." "Sir, what about you?" "I'll be there shortly." "I need to." Adrian stopped, his jaw working. "I need a minute." The guards nodded and began setting up a perimeter. Marina moved closer to Adrian, her own hands shaking. "He saved your life," she said softly. Adrian looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw real fear in his eyes. Not fear of death or danger or enemies. Fear of something he couldn't understand, couldn't control, couldn't explain with logic or strategy. "He's 6 months old," Adrian said, his voice cracking slightly. "He's a baby. How could he possibly?" "I don't know," Marina whispered. "But he did." Noah stirred slightly in his sleep, his fingers tightening on Adrian's jacket, and Adrian's arms automatically tightened around him in response. "Protection. Instinct. Love. Everything I touch turns to violence," Adrian said quietly, more to himself than to Marina. "Everyone close to me ends up hurt or dead. That's been the truth of my life for as long as I can remember. But this child..." He looked down at Noah with an expression that was equal parts wonder and grief. "This innocent child just saved my life. What could I possibly have done to deserve that?" "Maybe it's not about deserving," Marina said. "Maybe it's about what you do with the second chance." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Adrian stared at her, then at Noah, and something in his expression cracked open, revealing the man beneath the reputation. "I can't go back," he said finally. "I can't go back to that life, to that world. Not after this. If Noah hadn't, if I had died today, what would it all have meant? All the power, all the fear, all the violence. What's the point if you end up alone and dead in a burning building?" Marina reached out and put her hand on his arm, feeling the tension in his muscles, the way he was holding himself together through sheer force of will. "Then don't go back," she said simply. "Choose something different." Adrian looked at her for a long moment, Noah sleeping peacefully between them, and Marina saw the moment he made his decision. Saw it in the way his shoulders straightened, the way his jaw set, the way his eyes cleared. "I need you to trust me," he said. "Both of you. What I'm about to do, the changes I'm about to make, it's going to be dangerous. People won't want to let me go. They'll fight back. But I have to do it. I have to become someone who deserves what Noah just gave me." "What did he give you?" Marina asked. Adrian looked down at the sleeping baby in his arms, at this small, perfect being who had somehow known to keep him home, to keep him safe. "A future," he said quietly. "He gave me a future." The next weeks were a controlled chaos of transformation. Adrian began the dangerous work of dismantling his criminal empire, piece by piece, operation by operation. He met with lawyers and accountants, setting up legitimate businesses to replace the illegal ones. He negotiated with rivals and partners, offering them exits and compensation, burning bridges he'd spent years building. It was treacherous work. There were threats, attempts at intimidation, moments when Marina lay awake at night wondering if they'd survive this transition. But Adrian moved with careful precision, and the security around the mansion was absolute. And through it all, every evening, Adrian came home to the secure wing where Marina and Noah waited. He held the baby who had saved his life, played with him, learned to make him laugh. He had dinner with Marina, talked to her like she mattered, listened to her dreams and fears like they were important. Marina watched him change bit by bit, day by day. The hard edges softened. The quick violence of his reactions slowed. He smiled more, especially when Noah giggled or did something new. He was learning to be gentle, to be patient, to be the kind of man a child could trust. And Marina found herself trusting him too, slowly, carefully, letting her walls down piece by piece. 3 months after the explosion that should have taken Adrian's life, Marina found him in the mansion's garden on a quiet Sunday afternoon. He was on his knees in the grass, Noah toddling between them on unsteady legs, both of them laughing as Noah tried to chase a butterfly. The afternoon sun turned everything gold, and Marina just stood there for a moment, watching them. The feared Mafia boss and her son, playing together like it was the most natural thing in the world. Noah stumbled and almost fell, and Adrian caught him instantly, lifting him up with such easy strength and such careful gentleness that Marina's throat tightened. Noah laughed, that pure, joyful sound that only children could make, and Adrian smiled. Really smiled, the kind that reached his eyes and transformed his face into something young and hopeful. Marina walked toward them across the grass, and both turned to watch her approach. Noah with a grin, Adrian with an expression that made her heart skip. When she reached them, Noah immediately reached for her and she took him, settling him on her hip. "He's getting faster," Adrian said, standing and brushing dirt from his knees. "Soon I won't be able to catch him." "You'll always catch him," Marina said softly, and they both knew she wasn't just talking about Noah's unsteady steps. Their eyes met and held. 3 months ago she'd been a desperate waitress smuggling her baby into a mansion, terrified and alone. Now she stood in a garden with a man who'd been given a second chance at life because her son had refused to let him walk into death. Noah reached out toward Adrian, making his little demanding sound, and Adrian took him back with practiced ease. The baby settled against his chest immediately, content and safe, and Adrian's expression softened into something that looked like peace. "The transition is almost complete," Adrian said quietly. "Another few months and everything will be legitimate. Please. No more violence, no more threats, just life. An actual life." He looked at Marina and she saw vulnerability in his eyes, the question he was afraid to ask. "Stay," he said simply. "Not as a guest. Not as someone under protection. Just stay. With me. Let me be part of this. Part of you and Noah. If you'll have me." Marina looked at this man who'd been transformed by a child's instinct, who'd chosen to become better because he'd been given a reason to. She thought about trust and fear and the courage it took to build something new. "We're already staying," she said softly. "Where else would we go?" Adrian's eyes closed, and when he opened them again, Marina saw wetness there that he didn't try to hide. He pulled her close with his free arm, Noah between them, and pressed his forehead to hers. They stood there in the golden light, 3 people who'd found each other in the darkness. What power and weapons could not do, a child's instinct and a mother's courage did. They gave a dangerous man a second life, a struggling mother a safe home, and a baby the father figure he deserved. And sometimes that was enough to change everything. Hey everyone, let me break down the 3 most powerful lessons from this story. Trust your instincts. When Noah cried and wouldn't let Adrian leave, it didn't make logical sense. But Marina listened to her gut and Adrian chose to stay home. That unexplainable feeling saved his life. Listen, your instincts exist for a reason. When something feels wrong, especially about someone you love, don't ignore it. Don't talk yourself out of it. That inner voice might be protecting you from danger you can't see yet. Anyone can change when they find a reason that matters. Adrian was the most feared man in the city. Violence was all he knew. But a baby's innocent trust showed him he could be something different. And he chose to change. Here's the truth. Nobody is beyond redemption. You're not too far gone. Your past doesn't own you. When you find something worth changing for, real transformation becomes possible. It won't be easy, but it's absolutely possible.